Hey everyone, this is Mrs. Mallard, and this is Unit 7, Lesson 3 on transcription. And the goal of this lesson is to understand the process of transcription and the role that it plays in protein synthesis. So first of all, when you look at that word transcription, all right, when you look at that word transcription, it makes me think of the word transcribe. So if a teacher asked you to transcribe something, if they put a sentence on the board and they said, "Can you transcribe this this sentence?" you would simply just copy it down. That's what the term transcribe means, is you're just copying something down. All right. So when you think of like the word transcription, keep that word transcribe, which is copying, keep that in the back of your mind. So we've already talked about the fact that DNA stores information for how to build proteins. And we know that DNA is stored in the nucleus and it has all of our information for building a protein. So here's kind of an overview of the process of protein synthesis. There are two steps. Our first step, which we're going to talk about in this lesson, is transcription. The second step, which will be in the following lesson, is translation. So this little flow chart here pretty much summarizes the lesson for today and the lesson for tomorrow. We start with DNA. DNA is going to get copied into a molecule called mRNA. And this is what we're going to talk about today, the process of transcription. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about how messenger RNA is going to be used or translated into making a protein. So mRNA to a protein is referred to as translation. So two steps, transcription is first, translation is second. Now, a lot of times students will flip-flop these processes because they look alike. All right, they look alike, they sound alike. So one year I had a student who came up with this way to remember that transcription happens first. So if you notice, they both have the first basically 5 letters are the same in transcription and translation. Notice the 6th letter in the word transcription is C, and the 6th letter in the word translation is L. This student came up with this. He said C comes before L in the alphabet. That's how he was going to remember that transcription happens first and then translation happens second. So for the rest of this lesson, we are simply going to focus on this process called transcription. All right, so we're going to start off with a molecule called mRNA. The little m in front of mRNA stands for messenger. And just like a messenger takes a message from one person and delivers it to another person, you can kind of think of messenger RNA is taking the message or the information in DNA and is going to take that information out of the nucleus. So what we see here is we have our DNA strand. Remember, DNA is found in the nucleus, and we are going to have nucleotides come in and actually pair. So you're going to see kind of that's what you're seeing here is the mRNA, the nucleotides are pairing with one side of the DNA strand. All right. So what is happening here is messenger RNA is we're basically copying the information from DNA into a molecule of messenger RNA. So this whole process of transcription is going to take place in the nucleus. So remember, DNA is found in the nucleus of the cell. The issue is that DNA cannot leave the nucleus. It's basically stuck in the nucleus. However, it has all of the information. For building protein. So that's a problem because our information is stuck in the nucleus, but our protein is going to be built outside of the nucleus. So what's going to happen is our DNA code is going to get copied into an mRNA molecule. So here's just kind of the short of it. DNA is going to get copied into mRNA. This process we refer to as transcription, and this process is going to happen inside of the nucleus of the cell. Notice once mRNA has copied DNA, you can kind of see down here, it looks like it's leaving the nucleus. That's going to be its next step. Its next step is going to be that the mRNA is going to take that information. mRNA is going to take that information to basically take that information out of the nucleus. So one of the tasks that you'll have to be able to do is you have to be able to take a strand of DNA and you have to be able to transcribe the DNA into mRNA. All right, so you're going to have to be able to transcribe DNA into mRNA. So if you're given a strand of DNA and the DNA has a letter G, you are simply going to write the letter C for mRNA. If DNA has the letter C, you are going to write G for the mRNA. If DNA has a T, you are going to write the letter A for mRNA. If DNA has an A, you are not going to write T because there is no thymine in mRNA. All right, so here's kind of the little star next to it. You are not going to write a T because thymine is not in mRNA. Instead, it is a base called uracil. So anytime there's an A in DNA, you are going to write a U for your mRNA. All right, so this is how we take DNA and transcribe it into mRNA. All right, so here's an example of what you might see or a problem you might run into. It says below is a strand of DNA. Transcribe the DNA into mRNA. So I have a series of bases here, okay? And I have to take those and I have to transcribe my DNA into my mRNA. So for this example, I have A for DNA, so I'm going to write the letter U for mRNA. I have T for DNA, so I'm going to write the letter A for mRNA. I have C for DNA, so I'm going to place a G for my mRNA. My other C is also going to be G for mRNA. My T, I'm going to write an A for mRNA, and my G is going to have a C for my mRNA. Remember, the biggest mistake students make is they want to write a T here for mRNA. You cannot do that. You absolutely cannot do that because there's no thymine in RNA. It has to be the letter U for uracil. So just to kind of recap our lesson, we talked about the first part of protein synthesis called transcription. This process of transcription occurs in the nucleus of the cell. Transcription is where our DNA information is going to get copied into a molecule called mRNA, also known as messenger RNA. And just remember, transcription is our first step in protein synthesis.